When you play fighting games, what are you doing? That's something I get asked a lot, but that's kind of different. Maybe don't think about that too hard. Even in games that don't have a traditional life bar or have alternate win conditions, for the vast majority of fighting games, damage is the name of the game, and dealing damage is what you're going to be trying to do. However, I don't want to oversimplify things, of course. I'm not some weirdo early 2000s game personality who, wants to convince you that all fighting games are mashing buttons, and that your life means nothing if you don't have the new COD in your hands. Even though dealing damage is the name of the game, there are a million reasons as to why you would sacrifice damage in a combo. I mean, Street Fighter VI is a great example. There's very good reasons for why players are not constantly throwing themselves into burnout every 2 seconds. Well, it took everything I had, but I did it. I landed my most powerful combo. What do you think of that, Zangief with 40%? Obviously, Street Fighter VI is a unique case because of the drive system, but other games have this kind of decision making too. Maybe you want a combo that gives a better knockdown, or corner carry. Or maybe you want a combo that gives you the opportunity to build or apply unique resources or buffs. I mean, listen, if Melee Kirby eats a Falco, does he do 10%? Or does he do 8% and become a mid-tier? You tell me. However, moves or combo routes that sacrifice damage still typically do some damage, right? A combo ender that offers a better knockdown at the cost of damage is still going to do damage. And if the rest of the combo is unaffected, then that just mitigates the loss in damage even further. What I want to talk about today are attacks that do absolutely zero damage. And those tend to be pretty damn hard to find. And when I say attacks, I mean attacks. I mean something that you can physically hit the opponent with. Obviously, fighting games have tons of moves that don't do damage, but they're moves that you can't hit the opponent with. They're things like mobility tools, moves that apply a buff to your character, or things like installs. A lot of those are very cool in their own right, but they're just not what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm also not going to be counting attacks that can hit the opponent, but don't gain any value from doing so. Even without any magma, Loxodon's down special in Rivals of Aether 2 is a really good move. However, the tiny little baby doo-doo hitbox on it has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's valuable because of how it allows him to stall his momentum in the air, or changing the direction he's facing mid-air, allowing him to transition from facing the opponent to threatening his powerful back air. I am strictly talking about attacks that get their value from hitting the opponent, but are still good despite the fact they do zero damage. And man, it was pretty tough. There are so many attacks that you'd think would make perfect sense to do no damage, but they still do a tiny bit anyways. If a Johnny player lands a coin on the opponent, yeah, knowing Johnny, they would have damage on the brain, but usually not the damage of the coin itself. And yet, despite that, in both Plus R and Xrd, the coin itself does do some damage. Orochimaru's 5x in Super Clash of Ninja 4 is an absolutely absurd super, draining all of the opponent's meter and then disabling their meter build for a full 10 seconds. And yet, while it does pretty low damage for a super, low damage is still damage. Even in Street Fighter V's massive roster, I had a really tough time finding any moves that did zero damage. Rose's cards that inflict unique debuffs, 10 damage. Birdie's stupid fucking booger that he flicks at you during his idle animation, guess what? Also 10 damage. The only attack I found in the entire game that did zero damage was Zangief's level 1 V-Trigger 1. And I don't know, it doesn't feel very attack adjacent. Like, yeah, it has frame data, you can link out of it on counter hit, but doesn't even increment the combo counter. You might assume that the best place to look for attacks that do zero damage are things like taunts you can hit the opponent with, where the main appeal of the move is the disrespect of landing it. But even then, this doesn't really work in practice. Tons of moves like this will typically do at least 1 damage, and honestly that makes complete sense, because that adds the possibility of the really funny scenario of killing the opponent with a taunt. Some moves really lean into it too. In Omega Street Fighter 4, E Honda has this strange projectile that throws salt at the opponent, and it does 1 damage. However, if you kill the opponent with it, even though it's just a normal special move, it triggers the KO screen that normally appears when you knock the opponent out with a super. And on top of that, the round is counted as if you won the round with a super. Even though, this is literally not a super. Although maybe the S stands for salt, who knows. I do want to quickly mention one weird exception to taunts doing damage that I did find though. And that's Answer's taunt in Guilty Gear Xrd. Usually this is a frame 160 unblockable that does 1 point of damage. That's pretty cool. It'd be pretty funny to knock the opponent out with that. But you can't, because for whatever reason, this move cannot inflict fatal damage. So if the opponent has exactly 1 HP left, this attack will do 0 damage. I'm not really sure why this is the case. Like, would this being able to KO the opponent be such a problem? And if so, why make it do damage in the first place? It's in the same game as Faust's taunt, another taunt you can hit the opponent with that actually does do 0 damage. It's just kind of weird, I guess. Still, that's enough about taunts and shit. I do want to primarily focus on attacks that are actually good today. We're not going to get anywhere if I focus on shit like that and Bowser's down throw on Puff and Game & Watch, right? Anyways, I want to kind of ease into this with a move that's fairly well known, but is still very good despite the fact it does 0 damage. That being Yun and Yang's command grab in Street Fighter III Third Strike. Zempo Tension is the exact same for both of the twins, and it's one of the more notable examples of a fairly common kind of move to do no damage, that being a command grab that sacrifices direct damage for frame advantage, allowing you to get a combo after. For both of the twins, the move is frame 7, and leaves them at plus 15. It also switches sides, which can be frustrating given that both of these characters have really good corner pressure, but at the same time they've also got really good corner carry, so even though giving up the corner may suck, at the very least you'll probably get them to the other corner sooner or later. On its own the move is great, as command grabs in Third Strike tend to be, but maybe not the most interesting thing in the world. Street Fighter is full of command grabs that you can combo after. I mean, in Street Fighter VI, Jamie, who is connected to Young and Yang, unlocks a command grab that he can combo after once he reaches Drink Level 3. And even within the context of Third Strike, Q, Hugo, and Makoto all have damaging command grabs that they can combo off of. So, Young and Yang's, while great, may seem like it doesn't stand out all that much. Still, I think Zempo Tension is especially cool, even in Third Strike, and that's mostly due to the synergy that it has with Yun's Grenadian. Which means we are already done with Yang. Maybe he can do some cool shit with Siembu. I could not fucking tell you. You do not hear about this super much. Yun's Grenadian is pretty good. It is easily a contender for the game's best super, giving Yun absurdly high damage in the corner, incredible pressure, and it's an incredibly short bar on a character with great meter build. Hell, you can even build a lot of the meter back with the end of a combo that started with Grenadian. It's pretty crazy. Grenadian pairs really well with Yun's command grab because his pressure is so scary and so hard to challenge that he gets a lot of good opportunities to sneak this in. Yun's normals in Grenadian have absurd frame advantage, and they're very hard to challenge because they have the priority of super moves. And on top of that, the command grab itself is actually a tiny bit faster. In Grenadian, it goes from 7 frame startup to 5 frame startup. Of course, this is a situation where taking the opponent out of the corner really sucks, but if you've got enough Grenadian left, you can actually take the opponent all the way to the other corner, and then build a little bit of your meter back. It's kind of wild. Depending on the character and the route, you can also just put the opponent right back in the corner, which is great if you can do it because it avoids the heavy scaling applied by multiple shoulders. Having to adjust your command grab combos based on things like how much Grenadian you have left and screen position is honestly one of the most fun parts of Yun to me, and even if you've no interest in playing the character, I'd recommend messing around with it. It's pretty fun. However, against the right character or with the right execution, it's possible to start a combo with Zempo Tension, pop Grenadian, and then continue the combo, and this is the ideal scenario. Comboing into the activation for Grenadian and then out of it isn't, like, hard, but you do need specific starters. You can cancel into it off as mediums and still have time to pick up a combo, which is especially important for crouching medium kick, as that gives Yun his only routes into and out of Grenadian off a low. However, they are quite difficult, and you need to be quite close to the opponent as you have to be in range for a crouching light kick or light punch. So typically you're going to go into it from things like medium or heavy shoulder, super jump cancel close medium kick, or, arguably the most notable, the third hit of his light punch target combo. This is extremely strong and very easy, but it doesn't mesh particularly well with Yun's command grab, as the move doesn't leave him point blank. Granted, you are plus 15, so against a lot of the cast you can walk in and then get the target combo, but this isn't universal, and against some characters it's unreasonably difficult. Against some characters like Makoto, getting the target combo into Grenadian activation after command grab is really easy, and against some like Q you can even get close medium kick, which is pretty fun. However, there is a universal route that you can do to get Grenadian after a command grab and then combo after it. But there is a bit of a catch. Zenpo Tension leaves you plus 15, and the Grenadian activation takes 10 frames total. So it is possible to land a command grab, pop Grenadian, and then link a far medium punch and continue the combo after that with repeated heavy shoulders. This is extremely cool, but also very difficult. There's no traditional input buffer in Third Strike, and there's nothing akin to plinking like from Street Fighter IV. So getting the link after Grenadian here is really tight. And granted, even if you do get it and you get the shoulder combo, the damage is not fantastic due to the scaling, but I don't know, still, this is really, really cool in my opinion. This is also another reason why we're not talking about SFIII, because unlike Grenadian, which takes 10 frames to activate, that takes 16, so you can't do the trick I just mentioned here. With all that said, you might be wondering if I'm now going to talk about the move's appearance in Street Fighter IV, but I kind of can't actually, because unlike Third Strike Twins and Third Pint Jamie, Zenpo Tension in USF4 actually does do damage, dealing a single point. Funnily enough, this wasn't always the case, as this was actually a nerf introduced in Ultra. In Arcade Edition, the move did do 0 damage, and the reason this was a nerf is that going from 0 to 1 damage meant that the move now applied scaling to the combo that you did afterwards. It's kind of interesting they had to go about it like this, because despite the fact they do no damage, Zenpo Tension in Third Strike and Jamie's command grab in SF6 both apply scaling to the combo that you do afterwards. Still, this change was probably for the better, because even after the nerf, the meterless damage that Young can get after Zenpo Tension is pretty significant, and there's also the fact that he can pretty easily combo into Ultra as well. One thing I do find a little interesting though is how this move functions in Omega Street Fighter IV. In Omega, rather than doing 0 or 1 damage, all of the Zenpo Tensions, both meterless and EX, do 5 damage, with the sole exception of Yun's EX Zenpo Tension, which does 0, just like Arcade Edition. So that's Zenpo Tension, and like I said, despite the fact there are other command grabs in Third Strike that give a combo, I think it manages to stand out. However, what if I told you there was a game where a character had a command grab that gave a combo but did no damage, and it managed to stand out despite being in a game where nearly everyone has a damaging command grab that gives a combo after? Sonic the Fighters is the coolest fucking video game ever made, and fuck, I'm happy that I get to talk about it now. This game's really fun. Sonic the Fighters features a near-universal command grab called Foot Crush. The input is the same for every character who has the move, it leaves you plus 13 on a successful connect, and it's 12 frame startup for most characters, 16 frame startup for Knuckles and Honey, and Bark can't do it. The amount of universal shit Bark misses out on is so sad. He is like quite literally built different, but in a bad way. Big man can't even crouch, you hate to see it. It is worth mentioning though that the 3 new legal characters in Community Edition also can't perform Foot Crush, so at least Bark has a little company there. Now there's definitely a time and a place for Foot Crush, especially in combination with Hyper Mode, but outside of Hyper, it's actually pretty difficult to make use of the frame advantage it provides. You'd think the obvious thing to do would be to go into a 5k string, which does good damage and launches the opponent, but this doesn't really work in practice because the second and third hits of the string don't combo into each other, and the third hit is unsafe. Several unique jab strings also aren't true combos the whole way through, so they have the exact same issue. Some characters have good strings that can't be escaped, but for a lot of the cast, they really don't get a whole lot off of Foot Crush. You really wish there was a character with a grab that just provided a bit more frame advantage. And luckily for you, there is one. Which is pretty fucking funny. Amy's look over here is completely unique in Sonic the Fighters in that, while it doesn't do any damage at all, it kinda gives you all the frame advantage in the world to do whatever the fuck you want. Amy has some really slow buttons, yet you can still combo into them off look over here, like her powerful 3k string or 2p, which leaves the opponent in Wimpy mode, a status where they have severely limited options that only Amy and Bark can apply. It's Friday, you fucking losers. The real strength of this move, however, is that she has so much frame advantage that she actually has time to whiff Hyper Start, go into Hyper Mode, and then pick up a combo, which gives Amy incredible flexibility in her combo routes. You really get to do whatever you want here, it's kind of brilliant, and she's got tons of different combo routes that all have their own different utilities. And all look really funny, there is that too.
Over there!
What was that noise?
Die, monster.
That aside, here's a few examples of some of her better routes. This is a very high damage route that leaves the opponent right next to Amy, which is ideal for setting up her heads up Oki. This is really big because heads up is one of the best OTGs in the game, and potentially Amy's best feature. This is a high damage route that doesn't need a second look over here, which is ideal if the timer is a concern, which it very much might be because this is a game with a 30-second timer. Personal favourite here, this is a 16-ton weight route. 16-ton weight replaces heads up in hyper mode and is downright incredible. The catch is though that while it does incredibly high damage, you do have a damage penalty while in hyper mode. As a result, a lot of routes involving 16-ton weight involve performing the weight near the very end of hyper and having the actual weight itself connect outside of hyper, bypassing the damage penalty. Unfortunately, this route isn't a true combo after the 2P connects. The opponent is forced into wimpy mode, so they cannot block or sidestep the 16-ton weight, but they can at the very least force a trade. Although, it's definitely not a trade in their favour, that much should be obvious. Lastly, I believe this route is Amy's max damage. It's very punishing to drop and very difficult. So difficult that I think I fucked it up actually, which kinda sucks. You ideally want to input the heads up before you land so it comes out just as you do. It looks easy, but I found this shit really hard. I might not be a true gamer. Although before you dare to question my Sonic the Fighter's skill, do bear in mind that you are talking to the Festa 2024 mystery game winner. Like, yeah, I did find the combo in the video game too hard, but also don't test me. Now, as cool as this move and Amy is, unfortunately, picking up a combo with Hyper after a command grab is not unique to her. Bean and Bark both have extremely powerful combos they can go for by whiffing Hyper Start after a successful command grab. And those start with command grabs that actually do significant damage, so you could argue they have more utility in places. But still, the way in which Amy's works is completely unique to her, and the move itself is genuinely one of her best tools. And also, if you play Amy and not Bean, you're not playing as a landlord. So bear that in mind. Anyways, moving on from command grabs that start combos, we've got a command grab that can extend combos, end combos, and also has utility when just used raw on its own. So kind of the exact opposite of everything we've talked about so far. Mira in Killer Instinct is a character with several incredibly strong tools. She has an air dash, homing projectiles that she can follow in neutral, a safe on block side switch, an advancing special move that's plus on block, unreactable overheads and lows she can cancel into, and even an invincible on startup steerable teleport. But the catch to all of that is that all of these tools come at a cost, and that cost is her own health. The amount of health drained varies depending on the move, and while she has great tools that don't drain any health at all, the cost of some moves like Heavy Blood Seekers or Mist Form, her teleport, is incredibly steep. Mira is the kind of character you can absolutely dominate with the entire round, only to look at your health bar and go, oh fuck, that's not mine, is it? However, Mira's health doesn't just vanish when she uses these moves. Instead, it's converted to blood damage, and this is where her command grab, Embrace, comes in. At the cost of doing no damage, Embrace will heal Mira for a substantial amount of blood damage when it connects. The light version acts like a traditional grab, the medium version is an anti-air grab, the heavy version leaps forward before grabbing the opponent, and the shadow version is incredibly strong, in that it leaps forward like the heavy version in just 6 frames, and is then unjumpable after the freeze. On top of using it raw as you'd probably expect with a command grab, you can also use it in combos as either a linker or an ender. You do sacrifice damage, especially if you use it as an ender, but this is great as it allows you to heal back blood damage during a combo. There are some ways to potentially mitigate the loss in damage, however. For a start, if the opponent's first health bar is already drained, then you can continue using Embrace as a linker and an ender until the next round starts, getting blood damage back at no potential cost. One thing that is worth keeping in mind though is that when going for Embrace as a linker, The loss in damage is potentially more severe than you'd expect in other fighting games just due to the nature of Killer Instinct. Long combos are just inherently more risky due to the presence of breakers, so a long combo using several embraces as linkers could potentially get broken, and you missed out on the opportunity to end in a powerful ender, and make up for the loss in damage somewhat. Having this happen to you leaves a huge amount of damage on the table, so combos using embrace linkers are maybe best saved for when the opponent misses their breaker, or on a successful counter breaker. Another option you have to potentially mitigate this risk is using damaging linkers and then using Shadow Embrace as an ender. Shadow Embrace is fantastic in that no matter the context it's done in, it always heals a fixed, very sizable amount of blood damage. If you're close to the corner when you end your combo, another option you have for mitigating the loss in damage is using Bloodseekers as an ender. This will cause a wall splat, and when this happens, you get a guaranteed Shadow or Heavy Embrace, although going for Heavy in this scenario will heal half the normal amount of blood damage. However, even in this scenario, the choice of whether or not to end an Embrace is a tough one. On top of missing out on the benefits of other enders like Trollfiend's Launch or the exceptionally high damage of Reaping, the wall splat provided by Bloodseekers as an ender offers a really powerful mix-up, as the opponent has to guess between an unscaled but techable throw and having their tech baited and potentially eating a huge combo. On its own, Embrace is a pretty simple but effective tool, and in a lot of other fighting games, maybe that's all it would be. But man, it is just so incredibly well suited to a game like Killer Instinct, where it ends up being a really nuanced and interesting tool, and just a prime example of this game's fantastic player expression and decision making. Killer Instinct is an incredibly good game. I really do implore that you give it a shot. It's a game I need to play more of myself. It is unbelievably fun, even if I'm not particularly good at it at all. Now, while a lot of Embrace's utility comes from uses that aren't very command grab-ish, we are kind of 3 for 3 on command grabs right now, so I wouldn't blame you if you're ready to move on to something else. And I got you. How about, instead of an attack that you can't block, how about we talk about an attack that just makes it so you can't block? Specifically, I want to talk about Noob Saibot's Ghost Ball in Mortal Kombat 9. Now, Noob Saibot has the Ghost Ball in multiple Mortal Kombat games, but personally, I think it's at its most interesting in Mortal Kombat 9, where the move itself is absolutely incredible, but in the context of his kit, it's actually a surprisingly nuanced and interesting tool that I really enjoy. Ghost Ball is a high-hitting projectile that does no damage or chip, but if it hits the opponent, it removes their ability to block for about 4 seconds. It's relatively easy to combo into, and is absolutely devastating in the corner if the opponent doesn't have meter for a wake-up attack or especially breaker, as while his mid-screen damage is notoriously poor, Noob has pretty great corner damage. On paper, this move seems absolutely ridiculous, and on certain other characters it might have been, but on Noob it's actually pretty interesting. There's surprisingly little to be gained from a mid-screen Ghost Ball, so ideally you want to take the opponent to the corner, where you are able to immediately threaten the opponent with an unblockable into a powerful corner combo. However, Noob actually has to work pretty hard to do this. His corner carry isn't fantastic, and unlike a lot of characters, he can easily increase it by spending meter. And a lot of the time, Noob is actually more comfortable backing away from the opponent and giving up space, as his zoning is pretty fantastic. Even in the absolute best case scenario, you still have to sacrifice damage to go into Ghost Ball, and I don't just mean that in the sense that it does no damage while his other enders do. It's a little bit slower than his other combo enders, so on top of the move doing no damage itself, you also might have to adjust your combo and make it weaker so you can actually go into Ghost Ball. And doing this in the corner, where Ghost Ball is at its best, is a bit of a scary prospect, because the corner is the only place where Noob Saibot's damage is actually good. So there's quite a bit of opportunity cost here. At this point though, I am kind of downplaying this move a little bit. Don't get it twisted, it's absolutely fantastic. It's just that it's such a stupid sounding move, but I really like that there's a little bit to think about. It's like the stupidest sounding move in the world, and it's in practice a situationally very strong, but still relatively honest tool. Which does not cut it in Mortal Kombat 9. Get out of here, boob Saibot. Don't worry though, because if it's a completely stupid move you're looking for, then EX Ghost Ball is right there. Or Spirit Ball, I guess. I don't know. On top of preventing the opponent from blocking for 4 seconds, EX Ghost Ball also reverses their controls, which is just a really fucked up, nasty little thing to do. Although, funnily enough, it apparently didn't work online, which, I don't know, that's just kind of funny.
What's going on?
Either way though, as cool as this move is, it's not allowed in the cool no damage club because it does 3%. So we're not talking about it anymore. It's a shame we can't really talk about this one all that much, because this is the one that enables all the really fucked up stuff in tag mode. One last thing I do find a little funny about Ghost Ball is just how much it changes throughout the series. This move really just does whatever the fuck it wants. In Trilogy, it also disables the opponent's ability to hit you, which like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, I guess. In Gold, it's less broken balance-wise, but is more broken in basically every other way possible. You can get the opponent stuck in a grounded state in mid-air, and it's also atrocious if you're on the player 2 side, because instead of affecting the opponent with a debuff, it's just always coded to affect player 2, no matter what. In MK1, it's got a completely different gimmick. It applies this dubious green stank to the opponent, and you can do the same input again to detonate it for a launch. And MK11 has, by a mile, the funniest fucking Ghost Ball ever, because it's just like the literal opposite of the MK9 one in every way possible. It is a damaging projectile that is unblockable and doesn't do anything notable on hit whatsoever. And it also sucks complete shit because it's frame 42. I do not know what they were cooking with that move. Next up, we got another move that does no damage but gives a combo on hit. Although this one is not a command grab, so you have to be nice to me. We're going to talk about Seth's Tangent Engine in USF4. I mainly want to focus on EX Tangent Engine, but there's still some stuff to say about the meterless version, as it is an attack that does do no damage. Since Ultra, you can cancel into it, but it wouldn't combo from anything even if you could. Meterless Tangent Engine is primarily used as a risky but highly rewarding way to reset pressure, as you'll be punished hard if it's jumped, but left at a huge advantage on hit or block if not. Still, it has a tiny bit of mid-combo utility, as you can combo into it and out of it after a focus crumple, building a tiny bit of meter without affecting your scaling whatsoever. The amount of meter built is incredibly small, but sometimes that's all you need. As an example, this route here only builds a full bar if you use a Tangent Engine after the focus crumple. EX Tangent Engine is a very cool but unusual tool, however. For a start, it actually costs 2 bars, unlike the vast majority of EX moves in USF4. Why it costs that much isn't immediately apparent, because the frame data is almost identical to the meterless versions, and at a glance, the only upside seems to be that you can cancel into it, which on the ground doesn't offer much other than a costly but pretty safe way of resetting pressure. However, the actual selling point of EX Tangent Engine is the fact it restands airborne opponents. This is extremely cool, as restands are pretty rare in Street Fighter all things considered, and this is one of the absolute best. You can cancel into it after crouching heavy punch for a grounded combo off of an anti-air, or to squeeze out a bit more damage for 2 bars after a focus crumple. The coolest aspect of EX Tangent Engine in my opinion though is the fact that you can combo into it after a full connect EXDP, giving Seth one of the best 3-bar Ultra setups with his Ultra 1. Seth's EXDP, sorry I don't know why I found that so hard, hits twice on block and can very easily be FADC'd on reaction to steal his turn back, as he's plus on FADC forward dash. This is not unique to Seth, but everything that could be good about his EXDP FADC is really good. Many characters cannot reaction FADC and EXDP, leaving them spending 3 bars on an often unideal follow-up regardless of if the move hits or gets blocked. Seth can very easily react to what happens and either spend 3 bars on plus frames or a near 400 damage combo with Ultra 1, while still getting a pretty substantial combo if he doesn't have Ultra, and also just having the option to not spend 3 bars. If he sees that the EXDP hits, he can just have that be that. Spend the 1 bar on the EXDP and conserve his meter. Or if he just... Oh, actually, wait, no. If he didn't have 3 bars, then he wouldn't have been able to FADC it. I very nearly fucked up there. Very nearly fucked up. Nice. So that's most of what I wanted to talk about today. Even though they tend to be pretty rare, I think it's pretty clear that some attacks that do 0 damage can be really fucking good. Some of them are downright character defining. Potemkin's Slide Head is a pretty notable example, being a full screen grounded unblockable in plus R and exit that nets him a hard knockdown, giving him a fantastic opportunity to close the gap between him and his opponent. Sandy's Lasso in the first Nick All-Star Brawl is a huge reason in why she's generally considered the game's best character, being an obscenely big hit grab that is very easy to combo into and gives you the freest fucking kill confirm of your life on hit. And then you've got Darkrai's Dark Void, a move that does no damage but a lot of your game plan revolves around landing, because on hit it sets up Bad Dreams Rising, a unique state that massively enhances Darkrai's kit, while also unlocking 2 new moves, an invincible lunging attack in Nightmare, and a powerful command grab in Dream Eater. Like I said, some of these attacks are genuinely character defining. And in fact, there's one more attack I'd like to touch on that I think also falls under that description, and it's from a game that I very recently come to really enjoy. I want to talk about George's Nirvana kick from Umineko Golden Fantasia. Before we do that though, Big Yellow from the future chiming in real quick with something I probably should have thought to mention initially. Umineko Golden Fantasia is a fighting game based on a visual novel, Umineko When They Cry, and while I'm a big fan of both, it is worth mentioning that quite a lot of the fighting game spoils the ever-loving shit out of the visual novel. It's the kind of story where I think even knowing the existence of certain characters can be a huge spoiler, so to minimize that, I'm only going to be showing footage of characters and stages that appear in the visual novel's first episode. If you're wondering what that lineup looks like, then here's a very professionally made guide, and definitely not an image I took and edited on my phone in the corner of a tournament venue. There might be some teeny tiny spoilers here and there, but for the most part I think this should be pretty safe. So at a first glance, Nirvana Kick seems pretty simple. It's a 2-bar super that sacrifices damage in order to give a follow-up combo. It's a little unsafe at -7 on block, but it's extremely easy to confirm into, since not only is it fast at 7-frame startup, but it restands the opponent just like EX Tendon Engine did. This suits George really well, since he has a good launcher in 6C, and really good air normals that he can convert off with this on counter hit. Granted, while good if that was all the move did, then it wouldn't be anything too crazy. Well, outside of its really funny whiff animation, I don't know why George does this, he's literally just a guy. It kinda has We Have Raging Demon at Home vibes, you know? George is like Akuma if instead of an all-powerful martial arts warrior, he was a and a who. What really makes this move stand out is the fact that on hit, it disables the opponent's touch gauge for about 5 seconds, an almost completely unique trait shared only with Rose's detachment ability, which, while absurdly strong in its own right, and lasts for 10 seconds compared to 5, doesn't quite have the same flexibility as Nirvana Kick, as it's tied to either Meta World activation, which can be denied by the opponent, or Normal Touch or Assault Touch, which can be tricky to find a time to do, and is expensive and unsafe respectively. Now Golden Fantasia is a tag fighter, and switching to your partner does require a full touch gauge, but even then it's not immediately obvious why this is so fucked up. However, the catch is that several key defensive mechanics are tied to the touch gauge in this game, including Guard Touch, a vital tool for defending against guard breaks which are really prevalent in this game, Assault Touch, a fully invincible advancing attack and one of only 3 ways to activate one of your abilities, and most notably, Damage Touch, which is the game's equivalent to Burst. Not only are George's Nirvana Kick combos quite strong despite the move itself doing no damage, but from the point that the move connects, they're also completely unburstable. Now, while George's Nirvana Kick is absolutely incredible, it is worth noting that it's also the best thing about George by a landslide, and that George on his own is not a particularly scary character. His air normals are fantastic, but on the ground he's just pretty good. He has solid pokes, including a plus on block sweep, but he has very limited conversions off them if he's not close enough to go into 6C. His strike throw game isn't great as his throw forces a side switch with no substantial follow-up. He does have overhead low mix, but the overhead side of that is a bit gimmicky, being slow, unrewarding, or both. His meta super is a counter super, and while by counter super standards it's pretty great, a counter super is still a counter super, and you're leaving a lot of guaranteed damage on the table. It's a genuinely good move though, and the fact it costs no meter automatically puts it above most counter supers. It's the Meta World activation that costs a bar. As long as you're in Meta World, you can attempt your meta super as much as you want. George is also just weirdly frail for how fine his kit is. He has average health, but he has the lowest stun in the game by a large margin, a huge detriment to have in a game where stun is so prevalent, being relatively easy to inflict even without George's low stun, and leaving the user vulnerable for a full 3 seconds once they stand up. Now, while George may not be great on his own, Golden Fantasia is a tag fighter, so he's not on his own. In fact, he's never on his own. Unlike something like Marvel where your characters can die off, in Golden Fantasia, both characters share 1 health bar. You either have no characters or you've got 2, so he's never at risk of losing his partner. For a lot of the cast, teaming with George really doesn't work. Most George teams tend to be unremarkably fine, a bit confused, or in a few cases, genuinely good but arguably outclassed. But there's one character in particular who really brings out his strengths in a fantastic way, and that's Beatrice. Beatrice pairs amazingly with George, and a lot of that boils down to how they build and use meter. Meter build is really interesting in Golden Fantasia in that you actually can't build your own meter at all. What you do builds meter for your teammate, and they can use that once they come in, and they start building meter for you. It's like the fighting game equivalent of working really hard on a video, only to have someone come along and make a reaction video that does 3 times the numbers. And that is why Minecraft is not fun anymore. The game is too woke, and Copper killed my entire family. They should have a new update for the end that adds 18 new bosses. George can handle neutral well enough on his own, and as long as he can go into 6C, he's not reliant on meter to do good damage. So ideally, once he's built around 2 bars, he can tag out to Beatrice, and that's when things really get going. Once she's tagged in, she can aim to start her tower pressure, which, on top of doing really high damage and stun, builds an absurd amount of meter for George to use. On top of this, Beatrice's ability, Infinity SP, is absolutely perfect for George. Once activated, you have 10 seconds where the next action you perform that would have cost meter is completely free, and this includes George's Nirvana kick. In a best case scenario, George can disable the opponent's touch gauge, then tag out to Beatrice, who can then aim to set up her absurd pressure or stun the opponent before the effect wears off. George's ability Patience, which is usually a bit underwhelming, can also help, as it gives 15 seconds where both he and his partner will build meter while blocking, as opposed to just your partner. It's a team that can absolutely snowball out of control once it gets going, and honestly, it doesn't have an unreasonably hard time getting going in the first place. It's without a doubt the best way to make this absolutely fantastic move shine, and honestly, it's the best way to make George shine as a whole. Also, another very important thing about this team is that with Infinity SP, George can do 3 Nirvana kicks in the one combo, which is completely pointless, but it does look very funny. If you ever just want to hit someone with the Brain Destroyer, then yeah, fucking go for it, I guess. That officially does it. That's everything I wanted to talk about when it comes to attacks that don't do any damage, and I think we got some pretty fun examples. Initially, George's Nirvana kick was the only one I had, and it was so cool to me that I just wanted to find more and make a whole video on this idea, and I am really fond of a few of these, especially Noob's Ghost Ball and Amy's Command Grab. I'm definitely going to be playing more Amy in the future. That Sonic the Fighters is so fucking good, you gotta hop on. But anyways, I hope you had fun, and one more thing, actually, on George, I do want to say, I have read the entirety of Umineko When They Cry, the visual novel. And while I was pretty enthusiastic about him in this video and that cool move he has, I do fucking hate George. I want him boiled or put in some kind of awful contraption. And while it probably wasn't intentional, maybe, the fact that in the fighting game he just so happens to be a very frail low tier, whose best team revolves around him getting his best trait exploited by a top tier, you know, I'm just saying, if that is intentional, that's pretty fucking cool. Thanks for watching. Whoa, look at that, another video. That was pretty cool and fun, I think, and thank you very much for watching. But now, before we get into the Patreons and the YouTube members, special thank you to Roxy Rascal for helping me with the Killer Instinct section, and Leary for the little bit of Them's Fighting Herds footage. I love KI to bits, but I'm not very good at it, and I do not own Them's Fighting Herds, so that is greatly appreciated. But anyways, on to my Patreons. Big thank you to Morpheus, Worst in Show, TKLOS96, Royal Bunny, Kid Cassette, Luna Galemaster, Robert Helenda, Silver Key 5, Reboot, Sombret, Henry Zelenka, Sovereign in Exile, Michael H, Richard Davis, Ara Deadgal, Baron Beef Dip, Te, Bewill, Johnny362000, Memories Adrift, Frankie Mark, Another Ignored Beast, Eric, Ada Basilisk, Osiris, Duvi Zero, Lascole, Armop, Eric Lanning, Tia Lopal, Jam, Bretzy, Bailey, Zero Gum, Strawberry, Ewan Phillip, Bing Laton, JE3, Metalicy, Pink Hat Boy, Rio, Genny but she's a bit fruity, Wolftree, Ethan Hughes, Kai D, Excellent Tone, Wizard McMagic, Putnam, Snackerfork, Happy Calcium, Cordy, Beanie, Tailored Muffin, Emanon Advance, Blame P, Yon Sear, EBGB, 18 Quintillion Planets, Omilla, Armuda, CS, Daniel Drexler, Ben Gets Weird, Yoshinaro, Isola Delfina, Kino, Sop, PJ Schwa, Wolfrey, Lorelei Cordes, Stout Shaco, Old Man Han, Doctor of Journalism, Nigel O, Akwan, Erica, Jared Diamond, Lucy the Lamilla, Kibbybit, Zon, Ash C. Adams, Bravely Typed, VV Venomous, Skeleton, Cram, Tamiyaki, Dad Sato, Montalbono 9, Invertas, Kobe Farn, Mahogany, Sword Off Laser, Ernesto Flores, Robbie Shin, Braden Wist, January November, and Rosie YY. And also a big thank you to the YouTube members, Polksy, Thainuka, Fueg, Dandus, Multi06, King Yef, Ami Kitsune, Bro Dudaman, Bektas, Snowdrop, Kathy.uk, Mainzer45, CK Eternity, and New Soup V. Thank you all so much for your support, and I will make more cool things eventually, I think. Bye bye. It's really bright outside. That fucking sucks. I could do with that being like 20% less bright, I think. Still, that's enough.